Galen here, and we're gonna talk about. I bet ya all might not know what we're talking about because the title of the live was unique, which it was audits, strategies, verticals, and categories. So we'll get into that in a minute. But first, there was a question in the group by Andrew Merkel. I think Merkel, if that's how you say it,
Mikhail.
Merkile. Anyway, it's a
Mikhail.
really great question about Google Ads and how he had a Google Ads account and then he opened another a Google My Business account and then he opened another one because he moved. We did the same thing, so I have experience in this, and it says that Andrew's trying to merge the two accounts and Google My Business is not letting him. So he's getting some warning, they can't do it. What I would do is I'd go and fill out the form, Andrew, from Google. Message me, PM me, and I can send you. It's like Google Help Docs. And then you kind of fill out an email saying what's going on. And that's how I would deal with it, because right now you're at an impasse and sometimes their logic just doesn't work, and they have to help you figure out. It's a manual process. That being said, I have another Google My Business that actually closed, got suspended because I had somebody at Google tell me that I should create a separate account. So I have a couple reviews on my old one that I see sitting there, like two, and I need to try to merge them, but COVID hit and I got lazy. So sometimes you just move on and just work on your new account if nothing works, right? Anyway, I'm Pip, Seymour Digital Media, and that's Phelan.
Also with Seymour Digital Media, where we focus on search engine marketing.
It's true. And just so you guys know, um, so really, we're actually fuzz marketing. And the reason we're fuzz marketing is because it's funny. And we're both our names, Phelan and Pip. My full name is Philippa, are Pha and Pha. So we're the fuzz. Anyway, anyway, okay, I won't go into that detail. I think I'm just extra giddy because Phelan, what's happening today around here?
Today we are getting or talking about at our house.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, we're having someone moving in today, so we're expecting moving trucks any minute.
personal side
Uh, y-
note, just
yeah. So if Murphy's Law is any effect, it will probably show up in the middle of our live here. So we're if
yes.
there's any dog barking, that's what it's causing it.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're wondering who's moving in, it's my mother. But I'm going to therapy, so everything is okay. Let's get into the topic now.
Yeah.
So this is just going to be a conversation where Phelan and I talk about different businesses we work with and how different strategies work for different businesses and how different types of marketing works for different businesses. And as a marketing specialist, we have lots of people reaching out to us and asking us, for audits and strategies. And marketing's really diverse. If I have a coach come to me, I know that Facebook ads seem to work better for coaches. And I have not seen Google ads really work for coaches. Now, I haven't really tried it to the extent where if you spend a bunch of money, you can figure it out. But I usually do push people into the boats that they're supposed to be on according to their category and vertical. So let's talk about what the difference between a category and a vertical is. So a category is a business inside a vertical, and a vertical is like sports or bars, or it's like an industry, right? So an example would be in the restaurant industry, I have a lounge or a coffee shop, right? And so each different category and vertical do different types of advertising. So, right, Phelan? What do you think? What's your
Yeah,
take on
I would. Yeah, the way I would kind of categorize is even more slightly broader if talking about verticals of like the food industry. So that's, the people that are advertising restaurants, people advertising beverages, because those things can work
that?
hand in hand, but they also have some unique parts about them. So their category as a subfaction of the vertical is going to be a little bit different, but there's definitely going to be some truisms that kind of go through with a lot of them and a lot of uh, you know, uh, a lot of well-trodden ground for marketing that a vertical would do. Obviously, you want to listen to what people are doing in the industry, but you also want to be able to also see where they're not focusing on and seeing if there's something that you could work on with that. Um,
We actually have
so
a friend who had a client yesterday who they get most of their business from Google Ads, and their account got suspended for various reasons. I'm sure it's going to get fixed pretty easily. However, it's an opportunity to take a look at that account, right? And be like, ooh, all your eggs are in one basket. You might want to have a second basket. So SEO and Google Ads are a good pair, although they're on the same platform, they're different baskets. Um,
Yeah, your odds of getting an account suspension is much greater than having an SEO algorithm update and then you're get knocked off. Like it's a different concern that you would have.
yeah.
Though I heard a really good way to put SEO algorithm updates, which is basically it's like getting paid a debt or paying back a debt. So
Ooh,
you've accumulated, you've been a bad actor and you have a slow website. Well, eventually Google's going to notice this and then downrank you because they want to encourage your site to be full of like unique content and running well, so good user experience. So if you're not doing these things, you're accruing a certain amount of debt, and then there's going to be an algorithm update, and then that debt's going to be owed. And
paid.
so,
Going to be paid because you're going to go back.
yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
a
and
way to look at
yeah,
it.
I thought that was a good way of the metaphor because for most of the time, with algorithm updates, especially, they're for Google. I'm being specific to Google because Facebook does weird things, or any of those platforms do their own weird things. Um, they when they do have an update, it's usually they're not it's not bad. There's very few times that I've seen it where that's people have gone like, "Oh, my perfectly well-running website." It's mostly like, I had a bunch of spammy links, and now all of a sudden I've been taken off the rankings. And it's like, they're usually a little more deserved when you're getting downranked.
Well, it's interesting because now they've separated out the like a local SEO updates, right, as well from regular SEO updates. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about verticals and categories and
Yeah,
different marketing plans. I think the reason this came up was, as a marketer, you have different businesses coming to you for help. And as you become more immersed in your job, you learn a lot more and you learn what works for some businesses and doesn't work for others, right? Like we generally try to steer clear of guns, smoking, sex, and cannabis because they don't really work on Google Ads. Now, if I was going to make a strategy um, for those businesses, I probably wouldn't include Google Ads just because there's rules. And if you break those rules, you can get suspended. And like the last thing you want is not to show up on Google at all. Um,
or to
and
get permanently banned,
right now,
right?
there are
Because now they have the
strategies.
three
Yeah.
strikes and you're out.
Yes, and they do have the three strikes you're out, but that's with Google Ads, right? And being banned from
Yeah,
Google Ads, if that's where you make all your money, that's a little scary. Um,
yeah.
but we, over time we've learned that liquor, unless you advertise completely across Canada, you can't advertise it on shopping ads, right? Is that correct,
Well,
Fabian?
no, you can't get verified with Merchant Center. So what they do is they run through your account, your website that you submitted. They do a fake order, and then they try it for each of the provinces. Even though you may only be targeting like the province, like our province of BC, they're still going to have it for all of Canada, irrespective of where you actually want to target, which is very annoying. But yeah, what I would say as
Wait,
well
wait,
on
we
what.
haven't finished that because in Quebec you can't do that. So then all of a sudden you can't advertise across Canada because you can't get verified in Quebec.
Oh
Right?
yeah, so Quebec has their own system for administrating these, and unless you go through their procedures of getting administered, then you won't be able to do it all across Canada, and so you will be refused to get on the Merchant Center, which is shopping ads as well as organic shopping by itself.
Mm. Yeah, and it's really interesting out there because as time goes on and we're seeing more and more rules. I mean, Facebook is taking away options for audiences. Google's adding options for audiences. Like, there's so many different, but Google's making rules that you can't search children's things. So if you're typing in baby shoes, you might not get any results because technically you're advertising to children, but you're not because you're advertising to the parents. So it makes no sense. Anyway, Like, it's a lot. And so when we do strategies and things like that, the businesses that come to us when we're doing it on a strategy, we're finding that, not one size fits all, right? Like, and with the various platforms too. I mean, didn't we meet somebody recently that Pinterest would really work for them? And I rarely recommend Pinterest. What kind of business was that? Do you recall?
They were doing aromatherapy.
Oh,
So
that's
they would get bundled in with, general sort of maybe wellness products. And so
any
that would be part
commerce,
of a,
yeah.
yeah, so it made a lot of sense for their business to get kind of taking advantage of, understanding how people interact with the platform. I think that's one of the major aspects is how do people engage with it. When you go to Google, you're asking questions, so you want to be showing up for an answer to their question.
We call it
Whereas
attention based marketing, right?
Yeah, because someone's put up their hand and they say, I would like to know more about carpet cleaners near me. And so
Yeah.
when they're saying that, that is a great opportunity for your website to show up, and you're going to do all these things to show trust, like getting reviews. And so you've got
Mhm.
to also think of the mindset of the user as they're going to Google to say, hey, I would, you know, how do I make sure that my kids are breathing well in the house? Oh, I should have clean carpets and clean air
Yeah.
ducts.
Yeah.
That's ways that you could demonstrate this part is that before they even know the solution, you're already there answering their question, and so that could also build on it as well.
Yeah.
um,
And
the
those are
the
fun.
one other aspect that we've kind of been dancing around a little bit, but I think it's super important, is read the terms of service for each platform. They will definitely let you know what you are not supposed to post, and
Mhm.
definitely go read that. It can also be country dependent.
Now I know you're a marketer out there and that you love reading documentation like Google Help Docs and things because I mean, who doesn't want to spend a Saturday just learning about the rules? It makes you a better marketer. I'll say that, right? I think anyway.
Yeah.
Um, it's really fun. So when we talk about verticals, so I worked in a newspaper, and my vertical was sports and bars. I had a really good time in my early 30s. So one of my clients was like the one of the hills, the snowboarding hills, skiing hills, and then some of the bars. But so I didn't do as well in other verticals. Like I think I got some restaurants too, but um I didn't do really the government advertising or the real estate advertising in the paper. It used to be really big. And so yeah, different sales reps get different categories and verticals, and I think that creates a little bit of more understanding with relation to, so that's why people who specialize, like we had a company take one of our clients a few years back because they specialized in garage doors and it was a garage door company. And I mean, although I want to be like, oh, that sucks, you know, um, these people knew how to serve garage door companies across Canada and the US, and they knew what worked. And so that's where the bigger specialty comes in. And I think you specialize over time. I think eventually you find your specialty. There is a dog that's trying to I don't know.
Force his way under.
I
Yes,
don't know
he's.
what he's doing. I don't
I
know.
don't think he knows what he's doing either.
Right. So what would you, if we're talking about categories, like let's put
Yeah,
categories in perspective of type of service. So because in our business, some of the categories we see are like e-commerce SEO, local SEO, and then regular SEO, right?
yeah,
And all have slightly different strategies. And then there's the business that's local SEO and e-commerce. Those are some of our favorites, I think,
yeah,
because the
yeah,
business owners are super cool. Um,
yeah.
so, um, and I mean, I'm sure in social now, Rena was going to be here, but she's got a mass headache. So, Rena, we miss you, just so you know.
Hmm.
So Phelan stepped in here. So Rena and I were, gonna kind of offshoot on the what a social people do, because I don't do.
Well, there's also some aspects that we remember talking to real estate agents that they will not deal with someone that does Facebook unless they have a verified manager account,
Mm,
because there are certain contexts in which they will not deal with you to get you past the housing policies because you'll be immediately suspended. So you need to have a direct line to someone in the business support.
Mm,
And there's aspects like that where you may run into a situation where you need to just directly talk to someone in order to get this resolved, and so you need to be cognizant of that. That's why I said, like, be aware of the terms of service, because there's going to be things like that where you're going to need to know the little catches that are going to make it difficult from a social perspective.
mhm. And yeah, um, and if we go into audits and strategies, so when we do an audit, we actually pick different audits we do, right? And we actually don't do social audits really. I'm not sure why, besides I think they might be
Well,
quite hard.
because it's not a service that we're offering, so
Mhm.
there's no real point for us to be auditing for something that we're not going to try and make it into a service of how to fix it for them. And most of our clients come to us because they want to be found on Google rather than,
A
I
lot
mean,
of people
they,
ask it. We have people that get a hold of us saying they need social help, and then they actually need a new website. It's very interesting.
yes, yeah, yeah, we anecdotally have had someone reach out to us that was, she said she needed help with the Facebook page, and it turns out there was a lot more structural issues with the business that needed to get resolved. And so, we always say now that even if someone says they want Facebook, we can't always, sometimes they just might not even know because they're not seeing the forest for the trees. And so the client isn't always the most reliable person to tell you what is broken with their business, because they could be so focused on one aspect that they don't even see, much like how you were saying about, someone was entirely dependent on Google Ads and then they get their account suspended. you know they may miss a whole swath of other things they could be doing that would mean that they're diversified enough that they're not completely dependent on one platform in order to get sales or leads.
Right. And if you own a business and you don't know, you're like, oh, where should I put my advertising dollars? Well, the reality is you got to try things. And if you have more time than money, you got to try it yourself. And if you have more money than time, you got to let somebody else try it. I just wanted to talk a little bit about if we look at industries, for instance, if we look at what was before COVID, for instance, a real estate agent, how do they get most of their business? Well, it's a referral based business, right? So it's usually person
Yeah.
to person contact. So it's somebody with a lot of personal contacts who is interacting with people often, so they're being seen. So how do you mimic that on in the digital space, right? Because what you're trying to do is if somebody types in your name into Google or your business name, you own the first 3 pages of Google. That's another way to figure out maybe what type of advertising somebody should do, right? Go look at your competitors on Google, see what shows up first. Is it LinkedIn? Is it Facebook? Is it, you know, I think that might be a good strategy. But so different
Yeah.
companies creating different, if you look at what they're doing in business, like Discord is a new one that seems to be, I think it's, I'm going to go check it out a little more. I know it's been around for a while, but it's got the vibe of like old school chat room. Is that correct, Phelan?
Yeah, that's one way. It's a interesting platform. There's some parts that are definitely very intuitive. There's like public ones, there's private ones. The platform it reminds me the most of, it's kind of like a Slack where there are channels about certain topics that are related to it. A lot of the communities that are on there, they're usually gaming. That's the biggest focus because that's what it was built around, was gaming. um, and it was designed specifically to pair with like Twitch, and that's where the deepest integrations are. It's still,
Which that's
honestly,
pretty interesting because that means that, and we work with a couple gaming companies. We work with a VR game and another
yeah,
gaming company, and it's really interesting to work with their marketing because although 90% of all traffic going to websites, usually 80 to 90% come from Google. Like,
yeah.
however, people are buying the game products on something like Steam or Oculus or
Oculus, if you got the VR headset, yeah. And so, and if you look at the analytics from, like, say, their Steam page, because you can put your analytics code on there, what drives most of the traffic is like Steam DS, which is like the database for Steam. And so people are finding games that are well reviewed on there and people are talking about it, and then they go to the page and then they actually make the purchase.
So they're probably
Um,
going to Google to read about the game.
Possibly, though sometimes it's all kept within,
Discord
a lot of
or
these like platforms are, become their own little ecosystems as well. So you have to be cognizant of that. Um, the other thing I would say about like, when you're trying to pick your marketing, just to circle back to that part and how it ties to what we just said, is also look at how people are where your traffic's coming from in your Google Analytics because and set up your goals if you can because that's going to tell you where your traffic is actually coming from and also where people are fully converting. And again, that multi-channel funnel to see the steps along the way because you want to see which platforms are,
convert.
yeah, a middle platform might actually be driving it like social that you didn't even know about because people are seeing posts and engaging with that and then they are then go back and then actually follow through and then they'll find you on like Google Organic. And so there's a whole set of steps that might be happening along that way. The other thing that I would say that's super important is talk to your customers, anyone who
Where
is
are
filling
they?
it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, where are they coming from? Hearing what their thought process is because they might be jumbled. They might not even be able to do the final attribution or the first step attribution, but they might, a
You
middle
got to
part.
explain what attribution is.
Uh, Well, attribution is how would I succinctly put it? It's the way I've heard, the best analogy I've heard is like imagine you want to pick a restaurant for lunch and you ask your coworker, hey, do you know a good restaurant? And then they say, oh, the Chinese place down the block is really good. And then you see a coupon in the newspaper for that Chinese restaurant. And then you go on Google and you see that they actually have really good reviews. Which step of that pushed you to make the decision that that's where you're going to get
Yeah.
lunch?
Where is the ad dollars supposed to go if it's like a three-step process, right? Like
Yeah, and
if they didn't find that, yeah,
was one of those steps more important than any of the others because each one probably contributed a little bit because one person put the idea in your head, then you saw the coupon, then you're like, oh, I can get a
yeah,
discount, and then you saw the reviews. Like each one of those steps is critical in order for you to make that final step.
yeah. And then and then after they become a customer, then you have to figure out the lifetime value because that's going to be more important to how much you're willing to spend over time. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes into marketing that I mean, it's just fascinating. And I think one of the coolest things is that maybe one of the worst things is that in like 5 to 10 years, it's going to look very different. I mean, I am very excited to, hopefully, fingers crossed in time, I'd like to get into the VR advertising space, which would mean I would, because I really like the people at the gaming companies. They're quite fun to work with. We have some just incredible clients. Um, I really like them. If you're listening, I love you. No, but that being said, that's a space I think is gonna go off. And I know there's just like wherever you're really interested. I know a lot of people are really interested in Google Ads right now. From what I'm seeing. Now that could be a different experience where I think Facebook's been really frustrating and a lot of Facebook advertisers, like the marketers, and correct me if I'm wrong, because of all the rule changes, like they've had struggles with showing what conversions are and conversions are costing more, but that's because of the attribution model and it's just a lot. It's just,
Yeah, there's always going to be a lot of issues with that, and then you're also going to have to
I'm
pay
sharing my
more.
screen. Hold on. That was my
Oh,
notes. That's
uh,
awesome.
yeah, a little sneak behind the curtain there. The other thing that's really important is also looking at other places that you can experiment with as well. So Reddit ads, Twitter ads. It depends on the context for it. And again, this goes back to you got to know your customers, got to know your traffic sources, and these other platforms, they're growing up, building an email list. These things,
TikTok.
TikTok, yeah,
Yeah.
they're all super important. And finding your way to kind of be a little heterodox and doing something a little different. you can put in some effort. There's an anecdote that Social Media Examiner used, which was a gentleman went at the start of the pandemic. He was a plumber, and he was there wasn't as much business, so he started a YouTube channel showing people how to make simple repairs. And then a year later, he was giving a keynote speech to the a U.S. Plumbers Association, something like that.
No.
So yeah, that just totally turned his life all around. So there's certain aspects that you may not even recognize of what you're doing that can help you grow your business by getting your face out there and doing something that's a little different,
Well, this is
and that
about
can grow.
being sorry to cut you off. This is about being interested in your business, right? Like I watch a dude on TikTok that does, construction work, like building bathrooms. I don't know why I follow him, but I definitely know how to do tile on the floor and what I should be looking for. Yeah. I love TikTok. And so I find relevance there, but he's the expert to me. Like I would look to him, be like, well, what's he think? Maybe I watch a pool
Yeah.
guy too. Uh it's holler for the pool boy, you know. So because people have taglines, and I mean, I don't know, we all anyway. So depending on what you're doing, I think though when you love your business and you're willing to like do YouTube or TikToks and show people what's going on in your industry and what are you doing, right? Like um and that gives you credibility as a business owner. And a lot of business owners, they don't want, like, it's very hard to try to get business owners to do live video or video. Like, I mean, well, that's what I'm seeing. What are you seeing, Phelan? You think that?
Yeah, I think for the most part, unless they've made it a concerted effort to put in the time to do video content, I mean, video content is going to become more and more powerful as new platforms are taking different segments. So I think that the biggest part that I think is going to be more important is the distribution and how you're distributing content as well, to getting like having a full plan of building relationships. I was just listening to a Social Media Examiner, and they were talking about, or no, Actionable Marketing Podcast with Co-Schedule, their podcast where they were interviewing a lady who she spends most of her time, she's like calls her job like distribution manager.
Yeah.
So her job is like farming relationships with influencers in certain verticals, so that when there's a piece of content that she's already like, it's not just like, oh hey, hello, insert name, I have a wonderful video I'd like to collaborate with you on. So
Yeah.
it's building these relationships that take time, but will probably get you a lot more reach as well as ad spaces get taken up. So again, it's finding these different ways of tackling the getting your message out there that you'll need to do as it gets more and more crowded on, like, um, with ad spaces, right? Because placements are, like you said at the just a little while ago, costs are going up, conversions are going up. There's
Google Ads and
interruptions in,
Facebook. Yeah.
yeah, everyone, because everyone's going on to these platforms, and for better or for worse, it is a duopoly that it's Facebook and Google where you're getting your ad spend from.
Now
Uh,
TikTok seems to be doing, like, I mean, there's going to be certain verticals that work really well in TikTok and others that don't, right? Depending.
yeah.
So,
Well, and I think that the TikTok ads is going to be uh right now it feels to me much more of kind of top of funnel, right? Like you're getting like Tostito ads or something like that, like where it's just sort of like, yeah, they're just throwing some money at
yeah,
it just because they
just
have a creative team and they can like throw some extra dollars at it. But as it gets a little better with its development and also placement and people get used to the platform, I think that's going to make it more viable.
I think that
It's
it's getting in there and trying it. I think the part about marketing I love is it's get in there and try it and realize that things take time, and you might not be successful tomorrow if you started yesterday, but you might be successful in 5 years or a year, or stick to it and change if something's not working, but give it enough time. That reminds me of the number one answer in SEO, that is, Phelan?
be helpful online.
No, it depends.
It depends. Yeah, yeah,
So, what's the answer? It depends.
yeah.
Anyways, we are out of time. Doesn't that make
Oh,
you want to sing?
I did want to say one thing that's very interesting. I'll post this. So there's a gentleman who I also follow. He does growth marketing for startups.
Ooh,
He's in the Bay Area. His name's Julian Shapiro, I think is his name. I'll
okay.
post a link to his blog, but he's a gentleman that experimented with every single ads platform, and he's said that all of them were very effective, and some one ads platform he got no ROI on, which was Spotify.
Yeah, that's right. And that's another thing, right? I mean, like, this could take us down a whole nother rabbit hole, but like the Google My Business and local businesses, because you're usually either, hey, Google, what's the closest gas station? Or hey, Google, what's the number for this? Or, you know, and that's coming more into play. But yes, we are out of time, so we're not getting into that. If you joined us today, thank you so much. I am sorry I didn't see the comments. I made Google talk. Hey, Google, stop. Hey, Google, stop. I'm sorry if I made your Google go off. And next week's topic, Phelan,
Next week's
the
topic
good one.
is, yeah, which one is that
It's
again?
Google Ads and SEO and
Oh,
how
and
they work
SEO, how
together.
they work together. Yes, that's right.
We have had many. I think it might be us doing this. So if you're joining us every Thursday in the marketing group Cyberpunk Geeks Marketing Mixer, we get on and do a live about some sort of marketing topic that people have either asked us to do or we're going through ourselves. And so join us on Thursdays. And if you have questions, we try to answer them live. So yeah, I think that's it. Hey, Phelan? Oh yeah, join the
Yeah,
group.
yeah, definitely join the group if you haven't.
And
And
don't forget to have fun today and happy marketing. Bye.
yeah, bye.